Aurelion Sol created the stars. He has been building galaxies since before Runeterra existed as a concept. The list of things that could kill him is short. Every entry on it is a serious conversation about what the top of power looks like in this universe. Let's break this down. Cho'Gath. He represents the principle Aurelion Sol has spent an existence opposing. The terror of the void is not simply a large predator. He is a manifestation of the void's fundamental drive, the insatiable consumption that the Watchers have been cultivating since the universe began. The force specifically oriented toward devouring everything that creation has produced. Aurelion Sol is creation. He has spent his existence building stars, populating galaxies, filling the universe with the products of his craft. Cho'Gath and the Void are the universe consuming those products. The lore established that the Watchers, the ancient beings of the Void whose agenda Cho'Gath's endless hunger represents, are what Aurelion Sol fears. Not individual champions, not the aspects who imprisoned him, not the accumulated magical power of every civilization Runeterra has produced. The Void. This places Cho'Gath as the Void's most direct physical expression in Runeterra, in a specific philosophical relationship with the Starforger that most confrontations in the game's power hierarchy do not produce. Cho'Gath alone, at his current scale, is not a peer of a being who crushes stars in one hand. The Void he represents is. His threat to Aurelion Sol is not his individual combat capability, but what he is a symptom of. The direction the universe is moving if the Watchers complete what they have been preparing since before Runeterra had a sun. Vel'Koz. He reports to the Watchers that Aurelion Sol fears. Vel'Koz's function in the Void's architecture is intelligence gathering, the disintegration of everything he studies so that the Watchers receive comprehensive data about the physical world before they act against it. His specific threat to Aurelion Sol is not direct combat, but the chain of causation he is part of. Every piece of knowledge Vel'Koz sends through the Void brings the Watchers closer to the moment they judge their information sufficient to begin the final incursion. Aurelion Sol's fear of the Void and the Watchers is the lore's most revealing admission about the Starforger's vulnerability. A being who builds galaxies admitting there is something that concerns him is a significant disclosure about the architecture of the universe's power. The Watchers are the specific something. Vel'Koz is their advanced scout, their data-gathering instrument, the eye through which they are building the picture of what exists so they can determine how to end it. Aurelion Sol surviving a direct confrontation with Vel'Koz individually is probable given the scale differential between a star-building celestial dragon and a void intelligence instrument. Aurelion Sol surviving the completion of the project that Vel'Koz represents is a different question, and the Watchers completing that project is specifically what the fear response in his lore was documenting. You cannot fight the thing gathering information for the enemy. You can only prevent the enemy from receiving it. Fiddlesticks. It has existed since the first screams of creation. Aurelion Sol has existed since the first moment of creation. These are not the same statement, and the distinction matters. The Starforger emerged from the beginning of the universe as a creative force, a being whose nature was to build and populate the cosmos. Fiddlesticks emerged as fear itself, the concept of dread given physical form at the universe's inception, the first of the 10 primordial demons whose origin predates any civilization that could name what it was experiencing. The lore positioned Fiddlesticks as the oldest demon in the known universe, which places its chronological origin in the same era as Aurelion Sol's. Two beings of comparable antiquity whose fundamental natures are diametrically opposed, creation and fear, the Starforger and the ancient fear, represent the lore's most structurally complete confrontation between equals in terms of temporal existence. The specific advantage Fiddlesticks has against Aurelion Sol is the one it has against every target. The arrogance that is Aurelion Sol's documented and singular weakness is the specific quality that fear finds easiest to exploit. A being defined by pride in its own cosmic significance is a being whose sense of security is built on the assumption that nothing it encounters can genuinely threaten it. Fiddlesticks has been feeding on exactly that category of assumptions since before the universe had stars in it. Bard. He sealed an entire region inside a crystal to prevent something worse from happening, and Aurelion Sol is precisely the category of something worse. The Wandering Caretaker's function, traversing dimensions to address threats to the fundamental balance of existence before they escalate past the point of addressability, is the lore's clearest description of a being whose job description includes handling Aurelion Sol level problems. The Star Forger's stated intention upon freeing himself from the Crown of Command was to destroy Runeterra for the centuries of forced servitude the Aspects had imposed on him. He reached the planet when magical cataclysms had left it nearly defenseless. He was furious. He was at full power. And he was actively approaching the surface to execute the vengeance he had been planning for the entirety of his imprisonment. Bard did not confront Aurelion Sol in that moment. The lore does not document a direct intervention between them at the moment of Aurelion Sol's planned revenge, but Bard's function is precisely the intervention between a cosmic-scale threat and its target. He sealed Brookstone inside a crystal to stop something that would have caused cascading harm. A star-building celestial dragon arriving at a planet to destroy it as an act of personal vengeance is the category of event that Bard's existence is calibrated to address. His power against Aurelion Sol is not superior force. It is the specific capability of a cosmic entity whose purpose is containment, applied to the universe's most dangerous currently angry creation engine. Zoe. Aurelion Sol knows not to trust her, which is the lore's acknowledgement that she is the kind of threat he takes seriously. The Aspect of Twilight's relationship with the Star Forger is the game's most complicated interpersonal dynamic at the cosmic tier. She calls him her space doggy. She keeps returning to him despite his contempt. She is the only Targonian aspect he treats as something approaching a genuine presence rather than a minor irritation, and he has explicitly noted that she is his best hope of getting free from the Crown's bonds, while simultaneously identifying her as someone he cannot trust. Her specific power includes the ability to erase entire abstract concepts from existence. The lore described her as capable of wiping beings and ideas entirely from all history, reality, and memory, as though they never existed. This is a different category of threat than physical combat at any scale. Destroying something physically is a problem that scale can overcome. Erasing something from existence such that it was never there requires a different kind of power entirely, and the lore assigned that specific capability to the one aspect that Aurelion Sol watches most carefully. She was responsible for teaching mortals the technique that imprisoned Aatrox, a force the lore described as feeling like 1,000 dead suns pulling him into the sword. If the Aspect of Twilight's knowledge extends to imprisonment techniques capable of containing that kind of force, the question of what she could do with those techniques applied to the source of many thousand dead suns is one the lore has not fully answered, and that Aurelion Sol appears to be aware of without wanting to test. The Aspects collectively, they already did it. The Aspects of Targon's specific achievement, imprisoning Aurelion Sol through the Crown of Command, binding the most powerful being in the known universe to their will for centuries, was accomplished not through superior power, but through the precise exploitation of the one quality that all of Aurelion Sol's stellar scale capability cannot compensate for: his ego. They flattered him. They praised his creations. They told him they wanted to give him a gift as thanks for his cosmic contributions, and Aurelion Sol, who had spent his existence relatively alone in the universe, whose encounters with beings capable of appreciating his work had been rare, who had specifically avoided the Aspects precisely because they were egotistical and uninterested in his creations rather than their own, descended to receive the praise and the crown that came with it. The crown went on his head, his power was reduced and redirected. They had imprisoned a being who crushes stars in his hands without fighting him at all. The second imprisonment, if it ever became necessary, would face the obstacle that Aurelion Sol knows what the first one looked like. The first time required his ignorance. The second would require something more sophisticated than a flattering crown. A new approach to the same fundamental vulnerability, which is that Aurelion Sol's assessment of his own importance makes him predictable in ways that beings significantly below his power tier have already demonstrated they can exploit when they have the patience to do so. His celestial siblings. The lore named them. Inviolus Vox and the Infinite Mind Splitter are documented in Aurelion Sol's biography as his siblings in the sense of other celestial dragons, beings who exist at the same tier of cosmic creation as Aurelion Sol himself, who are neither aspects nor mortals nor void entities, but creatures of the same fundamental category as the Star Forger. The specific details available about them in the established lore are limited, but the principle they represent is significant. Aurelion Sol is not the only entity at his power level. He is rare. he has described rarely meeting equals. He has not described never meeting them. His celestial siblings exist in the same scale category as a being who creates galaxies, which means confrontations between them would be the lore's most equivalent matchup to a direct power contest at the top of the known universe's hierarchy. Aurelion Sol's relationships with his siblings are not documented as uniformly positive. The lore has not established them as allies, and beings of cosmic scale ego with potentially competing creative visions for what the universe should contain are not automatically cooperative simply because they share a fundamental nature. What his siblings represent is the specific category of threat that cannot be argued away through scale. A confrontation between celestial dragons is not Aurelion Sol against something smaller that he can regard with contempt. It is the universe's most powerful creative force against another version of the same thing that does not share his specific goals. Kindred. She is the one thing in the universe that his power cannot address. Aurelion Sol created Kindred. The lore established this as a documented fact, the Star Forger's act of creation extending to death itself, which is either the universe's most profound creative achievement or the most significant error in judgment the lore has documented for any entity at any power level, depending on how you assess the long-term consequences. The specific problem this creates for Aurelion Sol is structural rather than combative. He built the mechanism of his own eventual end. Kindred is not a being that Aurelion Sol can fight because Kindred is not a being in the way that fighting applies. She is the concept of death given form, the function by which living things end, the presence that arrives when a being's time has come. The distinction between Aurelion Sol and Kindred that the lore draws is precise and important. Kindred cannot die because she is death, and Aurelion Sol can die because he is mortal in the functional sense, even at cosmic scale. His immortality is the longevity of a being whose biology and power are sufficient to continue existing indefinitely under normal circumstances. It is not the immunity to death that Kindred possesses by definition. When his time arrives, whether through combat, through the void, through his celestial siblings, through anything that produces the condition, Kindred will be there. He built her to be. She arrives for everything, including the being that created the stars she operates between, and the fact that he made her does not grant him an exemption from what she was made to do.